The most important question when faced with improbable theories like wave particle duality, superposition, and quantum entanglement is, does an alternative to quantum mechanics and relativity exist? Yes, an alternative exists, and the name of the alternative is Gestalt ether theory. The word Gestalt means more than the sum of its parts. Gestalt ether theory states that the universe is completely permeated by minuscule electric dipoles that occupy every part of space. What are these electric dipoles and how did they get there? Quantum mechanics states that photons do not possess frequency and that only waves possess frequency. Therefore, according to quantum mechanics, the frequency of a photon is a theoretical concept that allows the mathematical calculations of a photon's energy. So, photon frequency has no other use than to serve as an abstract tool to calculate a photon's energy. Photon frequency, according to quantum mechanics, doesn't exist. Gestalt ether theory, on the other hand, states that photons do possess a frequency. This is based on the fact that atomic clocks keep time by the oscillation of electrons in the cesium-133 atom at exactly 9,192,631,770 Hertz per second. Therefore, when one talks of the frequency of light being 550 terahertz per second, it means that the electron is oscillating at the rate of 550 trillion hertz a second and emitting photons at that rate. This is a new concept in physics. It is unheard of to think that electrons emit photons at the rate of hundreds of trillions per second. This huge 100 trillionth to one discrepancy in numbers between photons and other particles is what resulted in the universe being flooded with photons, till every corner of the universe was filled with these photons. What is dark matter? The photons emitted in unimaginably large numbers at the time of the inception of the universe had nowhere to go, since nothing exists beyond the edge of the universe. So they began to fill up the universe. As the universe continued to expand over thousands, even millions of years, the photons, which permeated every part of the universe, expanded with it, causing them to become extremely weak dipoles with an individual energy of about 10 to the power of minus 40 joules. This extremely low energy places these photons in the virtual category, as they are impossible to detect by any means whatsoever. The universe is therefore filled with very low energy photons that are undetectable. But what are these photons and how did they form? Gatt states that photons are emitted directly by electrons within the atom. They are the perfect analog of Max Planck's discovery that photons or quanta exist as tiny individual, discrete, indivisible packets of energy. How are photons formed? Quantum mechanics does not give a clear idea of this. It is known that the electron always tries to maintain its base energy of 1.6 times 10 to the power of minus 19 joules. Whatever interaction the electron undergoes, whether absorbing energy or absorbing photons or emitting photons, it returns to its base energy as soon as possible. What GATT proposes that since the electron is a charged particle, that it mediates its energy through the emission and absorption of pulses of electric energy. Look at the advantages of this system. Quantum mechanics states that each photon is an individual particle, but gives no answer as to where these trillions upon trillions of photons are stored or of how they are retrieved when needed. The simple solution proposed by Gestalt Aether theory puts the electron in charge of forming these photons in a calibrated manner. Exactly the needed amount of energy is emitted or absorbed as and when it is needed. Further, the electron can easily form and emit trillions of photons each second. It is reasoned that the initial pulses of energy emitted by the electron are more powerful than subsequent pulses of electrical energy. This results in polarization of the charge taking place. The polarization of the electric charge around the pulses of energy emitted by the electron results in a solenoid formation, namely an electric dipole. Because of this configuration, the photon is both stable, it can maintain itself for a long time, and electrically neutral. It will not interact with other charges. It can preserve its energy indefinitely. Just like any other solenoid, it can link up with other photons, both end-to-end and laterally. This ability to link up with other photons is an extremely important function of the new proposed structure of the photon, since it allows a photon wave to spread out over huge distances and areas. It allows the system to scale up, in other words. This is what both a real photon and a virtual photon might look like. The only difference between a virtual photon and a real photon is that the virtual photon has vanishingly low energy, 10 to the power of minus 40 joules. It has been established that electrons in atoms will only accept photons possessing an energy which is compatible. Otherwise, the photons just pass directly through the atom. Virtual photons possess such low energy that no electron in any atom of any description whatsoever can possibly have use for such low energy photons. Therefore, matter can pass through these virtual photons as if they did not exist, and vice versa. The virtual photon field that we know of as dark matter has extremely low to zero interaction with matter. Now, this is what a photon may look like as it is being emitted. And when a real photon is emitted by an electron, the virtual photons constituting dark matter form into a line whose ends rest on the shoulders of infinity, and the energy of the real photon is transported along this line of aligned virtual photons. Note that it is not the photon that is physically transported, but its energy. Note the similarities with dark matter. Just like dark matter, it permeates the whole of the universe. Just like dark matter, it has virtually no interaction with matter and allows the passage of all kinds of electromagnetic waves without offering the slightest interference or interaction, and so on. It has been demonstrated that this model of the photon has no mass, is electrically neutral, can maintain its energy intact over huge distances in time, has the properties of both a wave and a particle, can exist in trillions of wavelengths, frequencies, and energies. Radio waves have identical properties to photons, but are formed differently. Radio waves possess huge wavelengths. A 60 Hz wavelength can be 5 million meters long. But questions remain. Why does light always travel at 299,792 kilometers a second? And why does light spread out according to the inverse square law? So to answer the first question, why does light always travel at 299,792 kilometers a second? The answer to this is that light travels at constant speed, just like any other wave traveling through a medium. How does light follow the inverse square law? If one observes the structure of the photon, it is possible to see that it has the ability to link up with other photons, both end-to-end and laterally. This is why the ether, or dark matter, forms the fabric of the universe. Photons are emitted in straight lines or rays of linked real photons that are emitted by the electron at the rate of hundreds of trillions of photons per second. As the line or ray of photons propagates, all virtual photons that come into contact with it are promoted to the rank of real photons. This means that they acquire the energy of the real photon, and the energy of the real photon is topped up from the line of real photons behind it. In this way, photons follow the inverse square law. Every photon in the line of photons comprising the wavefront possesses the energy of the original emitted photon. It is apparent that Gestalt ether theory answers every question ever asked about the properties of light. Gestalt ether theory explains gravity. Yes, Gestalt ether theory not only explains how gravity works, but also why gravity works in the way it does. Gestalt ether theory explains electricity. The present theory of electricity is flawed. Gestalt ether theory explains how permanent magnets are formed. The present theory does not hold water. Gestalt ether theory explains superconductivity. The theory of Cooper pairs is absolutely wrong. In short, Gestalt ether theory is the ultimate theory. It is both a theory of everything and a grand unified field theory. This presentation prepared by Dilip D. James.